Golf Central on YouTube, brought to you by the Epic Speed Driver from Callaway.
Hello, I'm Cara Banks and welcome into Golf Central on YouTube. Now, Justin Thomas is not in the field at the Sony Open this week, but he was in Hawaii for the Century Tournament of Champions last week, where you might remember he was caught live on air using a homophobic slur during his round. As a result, one of JT's key sponsors announced on Friday evening that they have decided to part ways with the world number 3. A statement from Ralph Lauren reads as follows. At the Ralph Lauren Corporation, we believe in the dignity of all people, regardless of age, race, gender identity, ethnicity, political affiliation, or sexual orientation. This is part of our long-standing commitment to foster cultures of belonging in the workplace and in communities around the world. We are disheartened by Mr. Thomas's recent language, which is entirely inconsistent with our values. While we acknowledge that he has apologized and recognizes the severity of his words, he is a paid ambassador of our brand, and his actions conflict with the inclusive culture that we strive to uphold. In reflecting on the responsibility we have to all of our stakeholders, we have decided to discontinue our sponsorship of Mr. Thomas at this time. As we make this decision, our hope is that Mr. Thomas does the hard and necessary work in order to partner with us again, truly examining this incident, learning, growing, and ultimately using his platform to promote inclusion. Golf Channel reached out to Justin Thomas, who declined to comment at this time. Well, to react to this news that came out Friday evening, I can now welcome in our regular contributor and Golf Week columnist, that is Eamon Lynch, who was, as he always is, one of the first to report on this and any developing story in the game of golf. Eamon, thank you for joining us late on a Friday night. Some are calling this an overreaction from Ralph Lauren, but would you argue this was a necessary move that they made?
Well, ultimately, that's a decision for Ralph Lauren and Ralph Lauren alone, Cara. We're going to hear a lot of people throw around this lazy analysis about cancel culture tonight when it's nothing of the kind. This is the free market at work right here. Companies have a right to choose who they want to associate their brand with, who they pay to endorse their brands. And clearly, they decided that the apology, the full-throated apology that Justin Thomas had issued last week wasn't quite enough. And in that apology, JT made clear that he realized there was a lesson to be learned here. And it's now quite apparent that part of that lesson is at least going to be financial.
Yeah, perhaps come a slightly bigger lesson than was thought initially. Tell me, does their bold statement that they made today accurately depict the broader climate on this issue in particular?
Yeah, I think you're seeing a lot of change in the culture. It's nothing new to hear this slur thrown around by athletes. What is new is that there's actually now a price to be paid for doing so, because a lot of people in golf will remember 6 years ago, Patrick Reed used the exact same slur in the exact same situation at a PGA Tour event in China, and other than an undisclosed fine by the tour, he suffered no consequences at all. Fast forward to last March, Scott Piercy posted to Instagram a homophobic meme about Pete Buttigieg, and his sponsors dropped him overnight. So you're now seeing this kind of culture where it's kind of like every other workplace in America, frankly. It's all governed by the same principle. If a company is not willing to support or doesn't think you're upholding the values that they espouse, well, then you're probably not going to have a job very long.
Well, their statement that was released tonight ended by urging Mr. Thomas to, quote, do the hard and necessary work in order to partner with us again, using his platform to promote inclusion. Eamon, you've always been so open to us about your sexuality personally. So can I ask you what you would advise Justin to do in this instance?
Nothing, frankly, because ultimately it has to come from him. He shouldn't take advice from anyone else, because the one thing he's going to need in this situation is sincerity. The apology certainly came across as sincere, but any gesture he makes from this point on, Cara, should he choose to make any at all, has to be authentic. And the worst possible thing he could do is to do something that just kind of feels like a marketing ploy. I think that would probably hurt more than it helps. So it's up to JT on his own to figure out what, if any, next move he needs to make to try to repair some of the damage he's done here.
That is interesting and actually very sound advice. Eamon, do you think then, given kind of the open way that they left this, could you ever see Justin wearing Ralph Lauren again?
Well, unless he's playing the Ryder Cup naked, he will be wearing it in September, because they are actually still the official apparel sponsor of Team USA. But in terms of his own relationship with him, this is a kind of crack that it's pretty hard to paper over. And clearly, I think they were at pains in the statement to acknowledge that they believe he's an upright guy, that he was sincere in his apology, responsibility for it. They just feel as though, from a corporate standpoint, they don't want to be associated with that. They are leaving the door open in that statement, as you've noted, but I'm not necessarily sure it's a door that Justin Thomas is probably going to want to walk through again.
Yeah, I suppose everybody could understand that. And also, Ralph Lauren are not Justin's only sponsor currently. Do you expect any of his other partners to now follow suit?
That's got to be a concern as to whether or not other sponsors were waiting for someone else to act and then take their lead from it. Will other dominoes start to fall? And it's worth noting that two of the sponsors who dropped Scott Piercy overnight last year are Titleist and FootJoy, who are two of Justin Thomas's sponsors. But I think ultimately it's going to come down to whether or not those sponsors believe that going forward, Justin Thomas is going to be defined by this. And there may be a difference here between Ralph Lauren as a kind of a global brand outside of golf that just happens to dip its toes into golf versus some very golf specific brands. But I don't think Justin Thomas is going to be defined by this. That's a determination his sponsors are going to make. But the problem is the ability to control that narrative left Justin Thomas's power as soon as he opened his mouth. And I guess he's just got to live with those consequences.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a hard decision to part ways with the third best golfer in the world. But Ralph Lauren chose that to be a necessary decision. So we'll see, I guess, what transforms from here. We will, of course, expect him to tee it up in Abu Dhabi next week, and all eyes will be, I'm sure, Eamon, on what he is wearing. But thank you very much for taking the time to join us this evening.
Thank you, Cara.
Well, Justin won the Sony Open in 2017. Of course, he's not in the field this week, actually enjoying some time off in the Maldives before, as we mentioned, going to Abu Dhabi. So let's take a look at the 2021 edition of the Sony Open. That is currently underway in Honolulu, Waikiki at Wailai Country Club. It's been pretty benign all week long, actually, and you can see some low scores. And Nick Taylor has taken the most advantage so far. A nice 62 on Friday has given him a two-stroke cushion ahead of a host of other names who are all vying for this title for what is the first full field event of 2021. As you take a look at the next page, Mark Leishman trying to be the second straight Aussie to win this event after Cameron Smith did so through a playoff last year. And Peter Malnati was one of three players who did hold the overnight lead after the first round with an opening 62 of his own on Thursday. Let's check in though with our 36-hole leader and hear what Nick Taylor had to say to the press after his round.
When you hold a nice chip for a 3 on 18, and what do? It looked like a very awkward moment of ball going in the hole, great shot, and
yeah, I don't.
There's two grasshoppers.
It's
watching.
Different, yeah. It's different with no fans. We're used to it, so you kind of, I don't know, say thanks to your playing competitors and go grab your ball and move on. So it's different. Usually there's a great crowd on 18 here, so that'll have been fun. But yeah, it's something we're used to now, but it still is different.
Didn't look like you were used to it. That's all. How much did that help in terms of your heading into your second 9?
It was huge. It was, I was 1 over through 5, made a couple nice birdies, and really started hitting some better shots. Really there, I'm trying to get up and down, make birdie, and keep the momentum going. So for that to go in, it was a bonus, and made a nice par on 2, and then made some really nice putts coming in. So, like I said, it was just I had some momentum going, and just wanted to keep it going and try to hold as many putts as I could.
And I'm assuming that's a wedge on 8 sandwich?
Yeah, 56.
56. And then the swing on 9 and the do you consider that a good break, and were you worried walking toward your ball?
Not a good swing.
I could have figured that out.
I had been there in the past, and I've gotten a drop, so I was, I called an official just to double check, and there was a few of them that seemed like over the radio, just double checking, and yeah, it was a fortunate break to get that drop because, it easily probably could have gone under the fence, throw it to the bounce off, and then get a drop. It was a break, and then, it was nice to take advantage of it.
And then lastly, Nick, I mean, with your, birdie finish, you didn't birdie 7, did you?
No.
No, okay, birdie. Now you got a 2-shot lead. I mean, for the longest time, you had guys who, like a Harris English, who was just kind of right on the cut line, and all of a sudden he's right in the middle of it at 7. I mean, it's so incredibly bunched, and it's like that every year. It seems like. Why?
It's a good question. I don't know. I think it's probably harder out here to make doubles, so and there's a lot of birdie opportunities. So, I feel like if you make 4, 5, 6 pars in a row, you're probably kind of getting lapped, especially with how the fairways are running. But through 5 holes, I was 1 over, and I assumed the cut was going to go to 4. So I was, it's sometimes easy to get in that process of grind mode and thinking about the cut. So I did a good job of that, of hitting some good shots and moving away from that. But it's so bunched that the scores are going to keep going low, guys are going to shoot low, so you just have to keep the pedal down.
So when you say you did a good job of not thinking about the cut?
Yeah, just not shifting it into the kind of like grind mode and maybe playing a little more protective. It's easy to do that out here when it's so bunched. So it was nice to get a few birdies. And like you said, 18 was one of those that got the momentum going and got me thinking forward of pushing ahead to 10 or more, other than kind of coasting.
So Nick Taylor with the halfway lead for the first time since he went on to win the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am in February of last year. And thank you for watching Golf Central on YouTube. Our live third round coverage gets started on Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern.